I got into a healthcare debate yesterday, and it was really weird because it was with some people my own age, and they vehemently disagreed with me on healthcare. I thought healthcare, I'm from California, so I tend to think slightly more in the middle or liberally, but I actually think that healthcare should be socialized, and I think education should be socialized, but I think that I am in the minority as far as, you know, the American consensus. Most Americans are afraid that if you make healthcare and education... You know, I honestly don't know what they're afraid of, actually. Like, most Americans are like, I don't want to pay for that, but they already are, you know? It's like... I read about this hospital in Tennessee that lost $300 million because meth addicts were, like, practically dying. And, you know, you gotta patch them up because you can't just let people die in the streets. It's America, and doctors have Hippocratic oaths. But basically, you know, this hospital is losing $300 million a year, and when the hospital has to turn a profit to stay in business, that $300 million has to come from somewhere. So Americans always act like, well, I don't want to socialize healthcare because I don't want to pay for it, but Americans are already paying for it, you know? Because they are. And my friend has a father who's, you know, older, he's elderly, and he was in the ER for like 5 minutes a couple days ago. And the bill was over $20,000, you know, for just a few minutes. He had no surgery, needed like a respirator and just some medication, and it was literally a $20,000 bill. And, you know, that's just, it's too much money. A cesarean section in America, I have a friend from Britain who lives here, and he was complaining because he was like, dude, my wife's cesarean costs $70,000. And, you know, it's just too expensive. I know my parents were spending like literally over $1,500 a month in health insurance, and that didn't even include the deductible. Their deductible for the year was like 5 to 10 grand, and it's just ridiculous. Like, healthcare costs way too much in America, and education's the same way. Like, if you want to get like a liberal art degree, like a degree in poetry, something bullshitty, that's still going to be like 30 grand in America, which is just, I don't know, it's too expensive. And then you get the fact that most Americans don't want to socialize it, which is weird, because Americans don't want to... I don't know, it's like it's so weird what we want to be for profit here, because, like, we don't want the police to be for profit, we don't want the fire department to be for profit, so why do we view education and healthcare differently as Americans, you know? Like, I always make the argument, like, what is the point of society if we're not going to be taking care of each other, you know? Like, honestly. And also, I think one of the problems with capitalism, personally, is that capitalism doesn't emulate nature. Like, when we're babies, we're not like capitalists hunting in the woods and eating other babies and survival of the fittest. We're being taken care of. And it's also the same thing when you're old. When you're old, you need to be taken care of. So the fact that when we're born and when we're old, we absolutely need to be taken care of, it's just weird to me that Americans don't want to deal with this. Like, they don't want to take care of each other. So that always trips me out. Now, when I got into the healthcare debate, they were like trying to say that healthcare was no different than car insurance, which is completely backwards, because I was like, okay, well, the thing with car insurance is a car in America is optional. A driver's license is optional. However, needing healthcare is not optional, because no one in their entire life will ever not need healthcare. You're going to need a vaccination, a shot, maybe some penicillin, but you're going to need it at some point. Now, with car insurance, it's completely different, because car insurance, as an example, you got 1 million people driving cars and 1 million people on car insurance. Not every driver, you know, is going to crash their car. So if you have 100 million people paying for car insurance, not 100 million people are going to crash their cars, so that's why it works, because you have a majority of people paying for a few accidents. Now, with health insurance, it's completely different, because everyone is going to need it. So if everyone's paying for health insurance, it still won't cover it, because everyone needs it. So, you know, like, comparing health insurance to car insurance really is not fair, and it doesn't make any sense, because, you know, you could drive a car your whole life and maybe not get into a car accident, but you are always going to need health care. So, you know, I don't understand that concept. And the thing I try to bring up to the middle class is the middle class doesn't want to pay for healthcare because they're like, oh, you know, we don't want to, but I try to explain to them you're already paying for it. Like, you're paying for prisoners' healthcare. You're paying for poor people who go to the emergency room. You're paying for anyone who doesn't have health insurance who goes to the emergency room. You're paying for the ruling class. You're paying for teachers' healthcare. You're paying for soldiers' healthcare. You're paying for law enforcement's healthcare. You're paying for the fire department's healthcare. You're paying for everyone's healthcare except your own. And even if you are paying for your own through private insurance, dude, like, that's not the most efficient way to go, because you're paying for everyone's and you're paying for your own. So, honestly, I just think that everyone, it should just be guaranteed, you know? Like, really, it should be guaranteed. It'd be much more simple.
We're gonna
And, you know, I don't know, like, I really don't understand the point of society if we're not going to take care of each other. Like, truly, like, what is the point of having government, of having these rules, having these laws to safeguard each other, if we're not actually going to take care of everyone, you know? And, I don't know, but it's a hard debate to have, because in America, we're brought up to be capitalist, and we're brought up to think that socialism never works. But, which to me is crazy, because the idea that socialism never works, that's not fair, because, like, any good idea can be screwed up. Like, we're watching our own capitalist system kind of get screwed up by greed and various other things. So when people are like, you can't go with socialism because it doesn't work, and it's like, yeah, well, capitalism isn't quite working right now, is it, either? So, you know, I don't know. I'm probably going to get a bunch of hate from this from Americans, but I don't know. I mean, I tend to get along with Europeans, honestly, because we tend to think alike, and I don't know why, because I used to be conservative, but I don't know, I'm just not anymore. I just feel like we should definitely be taking care of each other. And then people be like, we don't have the money to take care of each other, and it's like, bullshit, we're America, we flew to the moon. I don't know, how can we do these incredibly complicated things but we can't take care of each other, you know, as an example. It's just so funny. It's like people have a real can't-do attitude. And as I play this Batman game, do you know how expensive this healthcare would be? Like, Batman should have, instead of, like, giving you points, it should just be, like, healthcare bills and just be money that rings up. Because, I mean, my goodness, Batman's already caused millions of dollars in damage so far. Look at that, it's a broken leg. You know how much a broken leg costs? Probably at least 50 grand, you know, for the cast and crap. I got scarlet fever not too long ago, and scarlet fever is basically just strep throat. And I have health insurance, but I didn't go to the doctor, and, you know, I just had strep throat. And one day I woke up bright red like a crab, because I had scarlet fever, and scarlet fever is just basically a type of strep throat. So I go to the emergency room, and I have medical, but basically, because my deductible was like $5,000, I had to spend like $2 grand for penicillin. Now, penicillin costs $20, but to go to the hospital, see a doctor for 2 seconds and have him go scarlet fever, penicillin, I saw him for maybe 5 minutes, I literally ended up spending over $2 grand. And that's just ridiculous, you know? I'm in my mid-20s. How the hell am I ever supposed to get ahead in life when, like, everything costs way too much? Education costs too much, healthcare costs too much. It's just ridiculous. And it's just so funny, because it's like, we're America, we should have all these things, and yet we don't, and I got all these people saying that, you know, when I was having the healthcare debate, this dude was like, well, why are you complaining? We're number one. And I was like, what are we number one in? It's like, we're not number one in education, we're not number one in internet, we're not number one in infrastructure, we're not number one in manufacturing. It's like, all we're number one in is the pimp slap, you know? Like, we got the pimp slap down. We got bombs, and we got planes, and we have soldiers, and that's like the extent of it, you know? So, I just don't understand how we're willing to hemorrhage money on the wars on terror, but then we're not going to hemorrhage money on taking care of each other. And then I'm, like, accused of being a bleeding liberal, which I was a Republican, like, 4 years ago, because I wanted Ron Paul to win, but that wasn't going to happen, because he's too freaking old. I learned that in America. America only elects the cool guy. Whoever's cooler, America basically will elect. So the cool guy will always win, and that's why Obama is going to win as opposed to the Republicans. That's also why Johnny Depp should run for president. If Johnny Depp ran for president, he would win. So, you know, not that I'm saying Johnny Depp would make a good president, but it's literally a popularity contest. So, I don't know. I hope we have healthcare at some point in the near future.